Take two. Peace and good night, everyone. It's a beautiful night outside. It's freezing here in Birmingham, but it's a good night. And the first message that I want to bring to this space is that nothing affects you ever. Nothing has the power to affect you if you remember that you're not even here. You're just observing this. And this is definitely coming from listening to Muji every day because it makes sense and it resonates. So I will spread the message. Nothing affects you. It's something that's been so helpful to me to realize that nothing affects me and I'm in complete control. If I want to be, I'm in complete control of what happens in this life because all I'm doing is observing it. So I'm just seeing what I want to play out. The way I see it, we're all just God looking at what God can do. This is all the expression of a divine power. You're created with the highest intelligence. Okay, anyways. I was gonna get a bit carried away there. So today I want to talk about the gut microbiome and also the 4 humours. So today is day 4 of this medicinal fast, and it's been a good day. You know, when you say you have a good day to someone, we're not asking them to have a good day, we're saying you have a good day. We're claiming it for them and commanding it into their lives. And this is one of the ways that words are so powerful, and they shape our perception, they shape our reality, they are spells, really. So you have a good day, you have a good night, you have a good existence. There's reason for your existence. There's reason for everything that has happened in your existence. Okay, so the gut microbiome is essentially a vast number of species that are within the gut. And there's high variability between these different types of bacteria. There are so many species within you of different fungus, bacteria, viruses, you name it. And these all came from, so the first question I want to talk about is where it all came from. How did it develop inside of us? So it develops from when you start developing inside your mother. There are microorganisms found in the placenta, in the umbilical cord, in the amniotic fluid, in baby's meconium, or first poo. We have, ever since we began developing our physical existence, we have existed alongside microorganisms. And there is not a thing such as not existing with microorganisms. And so they shouldn't be feared. They're part of the ecosystem that we exist in, that our awareness is part of. This body is not what defines your existence, but it is a central point of your awareness. It is a big part of your awareness. And this body is not just human. This body is also other species. You're an ecosystem. Your awareness has an ecosystem to be aware of. And that's a beautiful thing. And so next, the baby is delivered. And whether the baby is delivered vaginally or through the skin in a cesarean section alters the type of bacteria that baby is then exposed to, and that can alter its gut microbiome development. Next thing that influences baby's development is feeding. Are they breastfed or are they formula fed? What is the state of the mother if she is breastfeeding? And so breast milk contains, it's a completely what's the word? Complete nutritional profile for babies, and it it completes their physiological needs as well. So all the different systems in them that are rapidly developing, breast milk supports all of that. Contains carbohydrates, fats, immunoglobulins, endocannabinoids rather, which I found interesting, and 600 different species of bacteria. And what's really cool is that it also contains oligosaccharides, which can't be digested inside the baby and actually act as prebiotics that help the development of the gut microbiome in the baby. Breast milk is amazing, absolutely amazing. And there's also bioactive compounds in breast milk that affect the absorption and digestion because it's a living fluid. It's coming from a living being to another living being. It's a living exchange of energy, of everything that child needs. There's a relationship between mother and baby where the breast milk changes according in a relationship to the baby's changes. It's holy. Geography, so where you are in the world, your country, the country you live in, the ethnicity, which country you originated from, or your genes originated from, and the food. Food is one of the biggest, we'll come on to it more. Food is one of the biggest influences of gut microbiome, the gut microbiome. So the early colonizers, so what comes in first in the babies, are primarily aerobic, so oxygen-using organisms. And these are like Enterobacteriae, Streptococcus and Staphylococcus, which might surprise some people. And then the anaerobic bacteria start to develop. So there is Bifidobacterium, and that dominates, and then that changes over into Bacteroidetes and Firmicutes. And these are just different species that develop along the infant's timeline. And as you grow older, there are others that develop as well. And this balance of different species is altered by so many things and influenced by so many things. So there's 4 main types of bacteria, even though there are so many species individually. So there's actinobacteria, Bacteroidetes, Firmicutes, and Proteobacteria. And there's also short-chain fatty acid, or SCFA, producing bacteria. And short-chain fatty acids, they have roles themselves. Inside the gut, there's also enzymes. And these enzymes influence the activity of the bacteria. They influence the nutrient absorption of the things moving through the colon. And these enzymes are very dependent on the diet of the person. So there are different enzymes within people who eat meat. There are different, and as opposed to people who eat plants predominantly, so plant-based diets, as opposed to omnivorous or carnivorous diets, very different enzymes. And actual carnivores, or actual omnivores like dogs, bears, carnivores like cats, many reptiles, and herbivores like, or frugivores like other primates, that are very similar in body plan to the human body plan. I'm thinking of squirrels and antelopes. They all vary very much in many things, in the acidity of their gastric secretions, in the enzymes that their guts contain, and these all represent or relate to their species-specific diets, which humans do have. Humans do have a species-specific diet, and all it takes is for you to look at the body and say, what is the body best at extracting from? Which food groups, what plants support the body best? It's not simple. Certainly not simple, but it's not too complicated, because it's not meant to be too complicated to know what to eat. You're meant to be born wanting to eat it. So when you put a food in front of a baby and the baby automatically has an instinct to eats. A baby doesn't do that with a cat or a rabbit or a mouse or a cow. You'll never see a baby pick up a rabbit and try to eat it. You'll never see a baby pick up a chicken and try to eat it. It's not something the baby does. Baby wants to play with it. Okay, so the importance of it, the importance of the gut microbiome. This really will not even touch the surface. There are so many papers, and I do recommend reading whatever level of reading you can into the gut microbiome, because it's immense, it's very vast, it's very interesting, and it's rapidly developing as people are finally starting to realize the importance of it. In fact, that's one of the things that the paper I was reading mentioned right at the beginning. This guy called Eli Mechnikov. In the early 1900s, he's a Russian scientist dude who goes to rural Bulgaria and sees that they're drinking fermented milk, and it's helping them not age, according to him. And so he goes back to Russia or wherever he's from, and he says, "Hey, it's my idea that drinking fermented milk will basically lead to better health." And so he won a Nobel Prize for copying other people, which is a lot of science. Maybe that's just me being a bit twitchy about cultural appropriation in science, and the idea of discovery is a bit controversial. Another guy who was great for cursing the world was Alexander Fleming in 1928, when he discovered antibiotics, which originated probably from ancient Egypt anyway. The use of antibiotic treatments is not something that was developed in the 1900s. Everything seems to have developed in the 1900s, right? But it didn't. If anything, that was when there was a major shift, and I'll talk about that more when I talk about the four humours. But if anything, that was when there was a bigger shift in paradigms from using one type of medicine to using modern medicine. And so, of course, there was going to be loads of rediscoveries because there was a shift. And things will shift again, and things will be rediscovered again in different ways. Antibiotics are one of the biggest curses of the modern world, in my, I would say, educated opinion. But hey. Yeah, so the things that influence, I'll quickly touch on that, I didn't mention that. The things that influence the gut microbiome include diet, of course, the health or age, if the person is experiencing illness, which can have a lasting effect on the gut microbiome, exercise, which is great, but not if it's really abrupt and really intense, which can cause inflammation. Early life stresses, so if a child is going through significant psychological, physical, verbal, sexual, any kind of abuse that's going to really affect that child, is going to have a lasting effect on their gut microbiome. Pharmacology, so what drugs is this person taking? And next to that, antibiotics. So, and also, well, antibiotics first. So antibiotics increase your risk of getting an antibiotic-resistant disease. Antibiotics dysregulate the harmony of the gut microbiome. Antibiotics are terrible for the gut. And when we find patients who have antibiotic-resistant infections, C. difficile, what do? We give them more antibiotics. The food industry gives animal agriculture, all the animals, they receive low-dose antibiotics. This is creating a pit, it's creating such a massive space for the development of new and very bad diseases. And we're introducing those diseased foods into a dysregulated organism. Recipe for disaster. Also, suppression of gastric acid secretion, so PPI inhibitors, which are a type of medication. So, small intestine biome, bowel. There were more problems with infection of the small bowel in people who took regular proton pump inhibitors to reduce gastric acid secretion than in people who had irritable bowel syndrome. So, worse than an actual disorder that is in its nature inflammatory, PPIs caused more problems than that actual condition within the bowel itself. Yeah, that's that. So the importance of it, let's get back to this. And these are just some points. There's so much. The importance of the gut microbiome is so vast, and there's just new research coming out all the time. So from infancy, the bifidobacteria are very, very important. The proportion of this species decreases, or this type of bacteria decreases over time. But in infancy, this is so important to strengthen the gut mucosa, and it increases immunoglobulin A, and that is correlated with modulation of the intestinal immune system. So the bacteria itself is helping the gut, that organ, regulate its own immune system. How perfect. There is a relationship between the genes regulating their own pathogenicity and our own genes associated with immune and defense mechanisms. So the genes inside the bacteria, the genes that make them more infective, and our genes that protect us against infection, they're in a balance. They're in a dance together, which is why we should not alter them. We should support them. Frailty and functional independence in elderly people. So with lower gut microbiome diversity, there is lower functional independence of older people. That is a correlation that has been found, which is very sad because you find lower diversity in nursing homes. You find lower diversity where elderly people are on polypharmacy or multiple medications, where elderly people are being attacked by antibiotics all the time. And this does not help them. This reduces their quality of life. This increases their psychological problems. We should be supporting the health, not destroying the health, in the name of medicine and the arrogance of medicine, because medicine can be an arrogant field where we do what is right as we've been told. Vitamin biosynthesis. So the gut microbiome is important for the vitamins we absorb. Carbohydrate metabolism. And going back to the short chain fatty acid producing bacteria, they protect against inflammation by decreasing, actually, the pH of the things moving through the gut. And depletion of the gut microbiome can lead to things like obesity, coronary vascular disease, metabolic syndromes, cancers. When we lose that ecosystem, it's not a good thing. Think about how this earth right now has lost so many parts of her ecosystems. The soil is of a lower quality. The water is of a lower quality. The air is of a lower quality. Things start to lose their color and fade when diversity and variability decrease. The bacteria also Well, there's a theory that bacteria, this is from a 2018 paper, so there's a theory that the bacteria also act as vehicles for neuroactive compounds. And so when we say gut microbiome, depression, stress, right, it works both ways. So stress, depression, anxiety can have a negative impact on the gut microbiome. And then the gut microbiome also regulates the psychological, the psyche of that person. It's a two-way system. So we're literally talking on a biological level with these bacteria. Brain, gut, they talk to each other constantly. And yeah. So, this video is getting quite long, so I'll move on to how we can nurture the gut. There is so much talk on prebiotic supplementation, probiotic supplementation. Okay, fine. We can have treatments that support this amazing resource within us. But let's think about what we can do as sovereign individual organisms created by divine light. What is around us? We have food. It's meant to be growing everywhere. Vegetarian and vegan diets have higher, or plant-based diets, I should say, have less inflammation in them than carnivorous and omnivorous diets. There is less inflammation. A group paper I did in second year, we investigated the effect of type 2 and processed meat on the incidence of colorectal cancer. And believe it or not, they are both type 2 carcinogens. They're not good for you. Eating less also is great. Fasting every now and then, great for the gut microbiome. Taking care of your immune system and preventing infections. And when I say preventing infections and taking care of your immune system, I don't mean constant sanitization. I mean supporting the actual immune system, because that is what prevents infection. You can't to have this idea that you can prevent yourself coming in contact with something you can't even see. That doesn't make sense, and that is not a healthy way of living. It's superstitious in nature to constantly be avoiding something that you may or may not come in contact with and may or may not be harmful to you. Instead, you have an immune system that's already built into your body. You were born with it. And when you support its health, it doesn't allow infection to happen. It's perfect. It's the most perfect and divine thing that we have to prevent infection. Support the skin. Skin is brilliant with preventing infection. Taking care of your mind or your psyche. Stress is our total response to environmental demands and pressures. When stress goes up, gut bacteria goes. It's not great for the gut microbiome. Exercise, as I've mentioned, is great. But there is a difference between abrupt, intense exercise, which can be pro-inflammatory, with habitual exercise, which is anti-inflammatory. So having a lifestyle that incorporates exercise rather than, being on the sofa for the whole, like 3 weeks, and then one day you get up and it's Christmas time. So it's a time when a lot of people say, it's Christmas, it's winter, I can sit down more and eat more, and generally lose health, because that's what that does. You lose health when you do that. And then come New Year's time, a lot of people can say, this is the year that I do it, this is the year that I lose weight, this is the year that I become toned. And New Year's Day, they go for a hit exercise, a hit workout. And then then they wonder why their body is very shocked afterwards, and they have gut problems, or they have they end up on a ward with rhabdomyolysis. abrupt exercise is, think of it in, it's not the same, it's not the same at all, but think of it's worse to binge drink alcohol than it is to habitually drink alcohol. Outcome wise. Okay, so yeah, exercise, stress, food. Intestinal transit time is one of the important affecting factors of the gut microbiome. So how long your food is taking to, or how long your food is staying inside your gut is important. We should be opening our bowels every day. If you're not opening your bowels every day, you eat 3 meals a day. Or most people in Western civilization eat 3 meals a day, but a lot of them open their bowels like once every other day or once every 3 days. The maths isn't making sense. Okay. Also, something common in the Western diet. Personally, I see Westernization as avoid it. Avoid it at all costs. Because what are the pros? What are the pros, really? So Westernization, something that's really common in the Western world, even the idea of calling it the West is weird, is the use of additives in foods. And even in health foods or plant-based foods, we see things like maltodextrin, carboxymethylcellulose, and we look at it and think, like, what is that? You know? Well, maltodextrin might seem innocent. It might seem like it's just taken from plants. It's a polysaccharide. You know, it breaks down sugar, whatever. Well, it actually impairs mucus release inside the intestine and can increase the rate of colitis or inflammation. Carboxymethylcellulose and polysorbate 80, these are just some examples, are emulsifiers, and these lead to an overgrowth of mucus degrading bacteria. A lot of people who are into their health get the idea that mucus is the main cause of disease. I can see why, especially with the Sebi movement, the Dr. Sebi movement, this idea that mucus needs to be eliminated from the body. It's understandable, but it's been taken to a far extreme because mucus is there for a reason. Your body produces mucus for a reason. Babies, when they're born, don't spit out their mucus. They swallow it. It's something that should be able to pass through the organism easily. It should be able to slip right through. And mucus is very important for preventing infections and preventing inflammation within the intestine. It shouldn't be to the point where it's so thick and so immobile that it's harboring infection. That goes against its purpose completely. And so that sums up a lot about what affects so we've talked about what is the gut microbiome, where it comes from, what's in the gut microbiome, the importance of it, how we can nurture it. And again, this is pretty much a whistle-stop tour. That's not even a whistle-stop tour. It's not summative at all. It's not comprehensive, and I do recommend everyone doing their own reading on it. So now I'm going to quickly touch on the 4 humours. It's a old Greek way of looking at medicine, really, the way of looking at the body, looking at health. And so it was meant to come from Aristotle, and Hippocrates was meant to have developed it, and it stayed in the mainstream for about 2,000 years. So the way we are now in medicine is quite recent, and we're pretty much babies in I would say, the pharmaceutical revolution or the drug company revolution. So there's 4 different humours in this theory, and health is allowed by balance of these humours. So there's yellow bile, black bile, phlegm, and blood. And these all have different things that relate to them. So in terms of the elements, the seasons, they're characters and fancy words for them. So yellow bile is choleric. It relates to the summer, to fire, the element of fire, and in character it is hot and dry. Black bile is related to the season of autumn. The element of earth is the melancholic humour, and is cold and dry. Phlegm, related to winter, the element of water. It's phlegmatic and is cold and moist, and blood or sanguine is related to the season of spring and the element of air. And these 4 different fluids are all fluids within the body, and so a previous way of looking at medicine was to balance all these 4 humours, and this would be done through pretty much what we do now, through talking about, well, there was a higher focus on diet and exercise of the person, and they would also use herbs and drugs that they made from these herbs. So it's not too different from how modern medicine is now. It just goes by a different name, pretty much. And so that concludes what I wanted to talk about today. If you have any questions, please let me know and I'll do my best to answer them. So I had a shot at like 8, then one at about 1 after 3, I say about 3, 4, and this is, so because the fasting day starts at 12, this is now 9:30. I have like cut-offs when I drink them, so this is the 6 o'clock one. The next one will be tomorrow when I rise, and that will be it for day 4. Pour. There we go. Probably going on the table again. I should find a better way to do this. I used a different blade today to blend. So the sea moss is actually not as blended as I want it to be. It's fine. But okay, so this is something I do, by the way, where I speak life into the things that I put into my body. So I do speak to my food because it's important. So in here we have spirulina for strength, ginger for wealth, aloe vera for relaxation and healing, parsley for balance, lime for gratitude, sea moss for building the body, no water. And I'm beginning to love this. It feels like love. It really does feel like just love. My disposition is very calm and tolerable and indifferent. I smile more. I feel good. I feel very good. I'm more reasonable with myself. Today I was missing chewing, not even chewing, just the density of food. Chewing is something new. And this is a part of fasting, realizing that realizing, well, this has been a part of fasting for me, is realizing that I really enjoy eating fruits. We really enjoy it. It's something that's so primal to enjoy eating a fruit. Like, I really look forward to bananas. But I think it's important to take a break from anything that you're addicted to. And we are addicted to food. If you have it every single day and you're dependent on it, that's an addiction. It's fine to be addicted to food. It's normal to be addicted to sugar. But you shouldn't be ruled by your addictions, I think. So I think it's important to take a break. It's important for the mind, for the balance of the body, clarity and strength, spiritual strength. Fasting gives so much spiritual strength, so much motivation to connect with spirit, to be spirit, to allow spirit to move through you. And I'll leave on that note. It's been lovely talking, and I appreciate everyone who listens. It motivates me to make these videos. So I'm very grateful. Thank you.